What's happening, everyone, and welcome to the Morlyfe Frequency podcast. If you're looking to infuse your events with an epic party vibe, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Isaac, and after a decade of rocking dance floors from Australia to Greece, I'm here to share the stories and strategies I've learned throughout my journey in the entertainment business. Today, I'm joined by a very special guest, Dorothy from Polka Dot Wedding. She has almost 20 years of experience in the industry, and we spoke about how couples can really stay authentic to themselves when planning their wedding. It's a chat that you definitely do not want to miss. A lot of insight, a lot of tips. So without any further ado, here is Dorothy from Polka Dot Wedding. I hope you enjoy. Thanks so much, Dorothy, today for joining me on the Morlyfe Frequency podcast, and welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's lovely to be on the other side of the microphone for once.
Yeah, not hosting for once
Yeah,
as a guest.
the pressure is off.
Exactly right. You can just sit back, relax, and enjoy it. How good. I'm going to get straight into it. So you've obviously been in the industry for a long time. You've seen a lot of trends in weddings come and go, and I guess the way people do weddings has changed over the years. But I'm going to start off with a bit of a different question. What hasn't changed over the years that you've been in the wedding industry, Dorothy?
Look, I think ultimately weddings at their core are still the very same thing. It's couples who are coming together with their love story, and they're still trying to convey their own special brand of love and their own special personality in their own unique way. The pressure is still the same. It's still financial pressure, even though like now we're talking many, many thousands of dollars, and 50 years ago we're talking in the hundreds. The financial dynamics are still the same. The relationship strain is still the same. It just all looks different. The aesthetic is obviously different. And I think also now what has changed is the visibility around this. Like obviously, Instagram wasn't even a thing when I started Polka Dot Wedding. When Twitter wasn't a thing, Facebook wasn't a thing. Now everything is getting shared, and I think there is a lot more pressure around what might this look like, because people are going to talk about it and people I don't even know and all that kind of stuff. And
Yes.
also the influx of ideas is so enormous now. You used to have a couple of magazines, and now it's like which social platform has thousands and thousands of pieces of inspiration you can gather. But the core of it is still the same.
Yeah, no, exactly right. And you're seeing a lot of trends sort of come and go as well now, and people hop on trends and things like that too. So yeah, it's crazy how much it's changed. But yeah, like you said, I feel that the core is the same as well. I feel like being on the entertainment side as well, the core of the event is still the same. At the end of the day, people just want to have a good time, I think. And
Yep.
they want people to remember the event for years to come too, and for it to be a highlight. So
Yep.
yeah, awesome. Now, what have you seen as the biggest change throughout? Let's put maybe social media aside. Has there been a bigger change besides that in weddings and the way people celebrate weddings and things like that?
Look, I don't think so, because even when I started Polka Dot Wedding, it was all about trying to find a way to express yourself through your day and trying to find a way to give yourself permission. And ultimately, like I said, weddings, they're about community, they're about honoring tradition, they're about that rite of passage. And it's just the way that we're doing it is shifted. And ultimately, even those who say they hate tradition will still include things like walking down the aisle and maybe even the first dance, or someone walking down the aisle with their parents. There's still those traditional elements. So aside from the extra visibility, weddings are still what they always were. So
Yeah.
it's a bit tricky in that sense of answering that question, because I just don't see that many changes. We all think we're reinventing the wheel, but it is, ultimately it comes back to that same core principle we've been talking about.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like I say, I agree. I see the same thing too. And in regards to the traditions that you mentioned, do you think people are becoming less traditional in the way they celebrate weddings too? Are you seeing a bit of that coming through?
I think people are braver in their choices now. I think when I started, and even when I got married, it's really difficult to be brave because you're not entirely sure how you can rock the boat and how you can reinvent these things yourself. I think that's why inspiration exists. But it's tricky to work through all of those traditions and
Yeah.
really pull out am I doing this because I want to do it, or am I doing it because this is what I think I should do? And I think that takes a lot of white space and a lot of introspection that I don't think necessarily happens when you're under pressure and you've got a lot of wedding stuff to do and you're trying to cope with life and you're trying to do all this stuff. So we get trapped, I think,
Yeah.
in how we plan our days because we don't understand what is possible and what we can break free from.
No, definitely agree with that. From my sort of perspective, I guess with traditions, you obviously have all the different cultures that come through, and that keep it very traditional. But I've also seen a lot of people break free of that sort of tradition too, and like having a bit more relaxed weddings, maybe even some smaller, more intimate ones.
Yeah.
And myself from a European background, having massive weddings culturally as well. It's nice to see, I guess, from my perspective, how people are not being afraid to veer away from those traditions too, while keeping true to what they actually want for their day.
Yeah. And I think inspiration platforms can help us see what is possible. Whereas, like I said, even when I was planning my day, I didn't understand the depths of what was possible in changing up how we did things and I don't think you necessarily think about that until you see other people doing it.
Yeah, no, 100%, definitely. Taking you back to the very beginning as to like why you started Polka Dot Wedding. Can you talk me through that a little bit and what
Look,
the landscape was like back then as well?
It's
Yeah.
very different. I started Polka Dot Wedding almost 20 years ago. We'll be 20 in January 2027.
Wow, congratulations. That's a feat.
Thank you.
Yeah, wow.
I always loved weddings. I was always just passionate about them from when I was really little. I used to go to the library. I'm an avid reader, so I went to the library every weekend with my dad and I discovered wedding magazines and I would make him take me to his office and I would photocopy all my favourite pages and I had like notebooks full of centerpieces and all the different things you could do at a wedding and I'd make notes and I'd do all of that stuff and then I discovered wedding blogs. But at that point, wedding blogs were not a thing in Australia. There was no wedding blogs because there was no social media. It existed with wedding magazines. And a couple of the American ones had just started up, like Style Me Pretty. We started the same year. So I just got a blogger account and I just started posting about what I loved. And it was really the first wedding blog in Australia because we didn't really know what blogging was. Like social media was not a thing. There was no Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, nothing. In fact, the community kind of lived in the comments of wedding blogs. So, you'd get 30, 40 comments on a post, which is unheard of now. Like nobody comments except spam bots.
Yeah.
So
You
it was
see that
really,
coming through.
it was so different then. And the
Yeah.
community with wedding bloggers was wonderful as well. Like we had blog rolls, which was like a list of all the other blogs, like wedding blogs, and you'd all click through into each other and we'd leave comments on each other and post about everything else. So the community back then was wonderful. I think it's just so vast now. And it's so very different. I mean, I know with us, we are doing so much social media just for one post. So it's such a different landscape now, and there's so much inspiration, and there's so many blogs, and there's so many accounts, and there's so much inspiration. It's so noisy compared to what it
Yes.
was.
100%.
But we're still existing over in our little corner of the internet. And I still love what I do, despite 20 years on. I'm not sure
Yeah,
how
that's
I've managed
amazing.
that, but here we see it.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's nice to hear stories like this where, throughout the years of, everything changing, that you're still passionate about what you do and everything like that. So, and obviously a lot of couples get a lot of inspiration from your site and from Polka Dot Wedding too. So, yeah, that's quite a feat in itself. And over the years, did you find that sort of technology changed the way that you do things? Or like, for example, you run your own podcast, the Feel Good Wedding podcast.
Yeah.
So how did that come about? Was that sort of change of the times thing of you guys pivoting, or did you see some demand for
Look,
that sort
I
of
think
content?
technology changed the way we dispersed and got our information and got our content out there. it used to just be able to live on our site and SEO was amazing. And now it's just, we have to broach more avenues. And the podcast came about because during COVID, I would just get on Zoom with a bunch of wedding vendors and we would just talk. And it wasn't about joining our directory and doing this and doing that. It was just, how are you going? What's the state of the nation? And what do you think about inclusion in weddings? Because we're really passionate about that. Like, where
Yeah.
are you sitting? And I really loved those conversations. Like, I could just sit and chat to wedding vendors for hours because I find they're just such rewarding chats. And I wanted to bring them out into the open a bit more. And I know podcasts, I personally don't do a lot of listening. I'm a reader because I write a lot, obviously. And
Yeah.
I know podcasts are something that you can chuck on the way to work and you can chuck on while you're working at your desk. And it's another way of getting information and talking to interesting people and having really interesting conversations that we just can't kind of do on a written format. We can't do the weaving way of a conversation when you're doing a Q&A in a written format. It just doesn't work.
It's nice
So
to
the
have those
podcast
DNMs
was
sometimes.
exactly. It's nice to have a D&M. It's nice to have a bit of a like, oh, you think that, and you sort of broach on from that. So the podcast was just a natural extension of trying to have those conversations and getting them out there.
No, that's amazing. And yeah, we see it on our end as well. And it's great to bring, like, different vendors on the podcast, whether that be DJs, photographers, celebrants or anything like that. Just, yeah, to have a bit of a chat behind the scenes. Because a lot of the times, you only organize, well, ideally one wedding throughout, your life. So a lot of people come
Yep.
into this kind of everything is new. Do you find that sort of thing as well from your
Well,
end?
yeah, 100%, because I think, when you start out planning a wedding, you're like, right, I'm going to spend $1,000 on a photographer, because what context do you have for any decision around planning a wedding? So everyone that comes into planning a wedding is kind of coming in with no experience generally and no understanding of the ins and outs of the industry. So to be able to give that information, I think, is really important so people have somewhere to start.
Yeah, 100%. And I feel like, yeah, your site is really good for that, obviously. And just, yeah, having that resource for people to start. Because, well, like what you said, information overload, especially in
Yes,
2026, people just get, too overwhelmed with all their choices and things like that too.
100%.
And oftentimes it's the budget thing as well, right? It's like, okay, I want all this stuff, but what can I actually afford, sort of thing as well. That's what I see coming through. So, no, so a lot of couples, I guess, they come to your site, they get a lot of inspiration and a lot of behind the scenes. Is like, I'm trying to get a bit more of an idea of what's your ultimate mission now and how that has evolved over the years as well.
Um, I have always said our mission was to create a space or allow a space where couples can feel permission to create a wedding that's uniquely theirs. I
Yeah.
feel like even now there's so much pressure, there's so much noise, and it can be really, really difficult to weed through that and figure it out. And we've built Polka Dot Wedding to be a place where everyone feels seen. I think as with all media, it can get really tricky to find yourself if you're outside the norm. If you're older, younger, if your size is larger, if you're LGBTQI, if you're disabled, like, it's really, really hard to find anything beyond the necessarily high budget weddings that look a certain way. And we've worked really hard to find a space or create a space where stories of all couples of all different backgrounds can be found, because I want you to be able to see yourself on our site. I want you to understand that you are okay as you are, that your wedding doesn't have to be anything more than what you want it to be, that, there's no pressure to be anything beyond what you are. And that's been a really big lighthouse for us in the way that we develop our content and the way that we structure our content. We want you to feel okay to be you in every format of that.
That's amazing, because even I see just in different aspects of life as well with social media, what is authentically you is very much, filtered by everything people see on social media. And a lot of
Yeah.
times, that it creates that sort of almost competition and people lose the sense of authenticity of, what's true to them.
Yes.
Yeah, so I find that really refreshing that that's your mission. And I think that's a really positive thing that's come out of this, I guess, social media generation, is that people can find messages like yourself at Polka Dot Wedding, and it's so important just to stay, uniquely yourself, both in weddings and in all aspects of life. I think as well. So,
Yep, yep.
so on that theme of staying uniquely like a couple, finding their unique self, is there anything, what's the most unique thing you've seen at any sort of wedding? I'm going to flip it to like the music side or anything like that, that you've seen, whether that be for DJs or bands or whatever it is. Has there been a standout sort of idea that you've seen throughout the years?
Look, I'm not very good with standout ideas because when I read a couple story, if you can see that they've done something uniquely theirs and you can just see how much it is them and it's nothing else, it's not for like show and fun and all that stuff. It's just for, oh, this is who we are. That's the part that like hits me right in the middle and I'm like, yeah, I love this.
Yeah.
We did have an entertainment company owner recently and he filled his day with so much music. They had a band at the end of the ceremony. They all travelled on a bus with music through to the reception and they
Oh,
just
cool.
had endless performances all reception. Obviously, that was really him and his partner because, they have a entertainment company. They've got so much music in their life. And I think that's just the core of it, of just like, even those little moments where it's like your best friend singing you a song and she's an amazing singer, or you play a special song that, your dad sung to you while you were growing up and that's the first dance song for you and him. Like it's just these special little moments. I think, as you know, obviously, music and entertainment has such a memory hold for us, and to be able to weave that into your day, I think there's some beautiful ways that people have done it. So there's not one standout, there's just a lot.
Yeah, no, 100%. I love that idea though of just incorporating music throughout the whole day,
Yeah.
even on the bus on the way there and or wherever it is that how people are getting there. That's just awesome. That's an idea for me. I got to take notes
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah. I'll
Yeah.
send you the link.
Yeah, could you please? Yeah, no, that's awesome. So yeah, my business partner as well, obviously very into his music. So
Yeah, I
I'll
bet.
send that through. Yeah, I'll send that through to him 100%. Now into a bit of a different segment of the podcast. I'm going to ask, what's the weirdest or the most controversial thing you've ever seen a couple do in the name of actually being unique that worked? Something that
Look,
was out of the blue at
again,
the time,
I'm always I'm going to sound like Switzerland throughout this. Anything the couple did that was truly themselves. We did have a couple of really way out things. And again, I think this only works if like it is you, not just because, oh, we're going to do this because we don't like other couples and all that stuff.
Yeah,
One
exactly. Yeah.
couple had a slumber party after their ceremony where everyone wore onesies.
Oh,
They
cool.
had like sheets strung up. It was amazing. And then we did one a couple of months ago now. I think it was in our Joy issue where they had a roller skating rink celebration, like a roller derby the night before the wedding for all their friends and family. And it was just so cool. And I like I'm not cool. So all these ideas are like amazing to me because I'm not cool and I don't think outside the box. But I think these couples doing these things that were obviously they'd probably done roller skating and loved a slumber party and blah, blah, blah. But that kind of stuff is the stuff that taps into who you are. And I think that's what I mean about being braver. Like I didn't think of any of this stuff when I was getting married, but you can have a slumber party at your wedding. You can have a roller derby. Why not?
No, 100%, 100%. And it goes back to the thing we were talking about, I think, about tradition, right? It's like
Yep.
people are pushing that boundary, not just, controversially, but like authentically being themselves as well.
Yep.
Which is always really nice to see. I think that social media sometimes puts out the picture that people, it's easy for people to be fake. Do you know what I mean? So seeing that authenticity is really super refreshing. On the other hand, is there something that you've seen that has kind of been unmemorable, or I'm sure you get a lot of submissions on your site, but without naming names,
Look, I feel like I'm
is
going to
there
be
like,
sounding like I'm banging my head, like banging the same message through of how
yeah,
every
yeah,
wedding is
yeah,
memorable. And it is. Every wedding is memorable and every wedding has its memorable details. I think
yeah,
what I find difficult is when I can see that a couple has kind of lost their way. It's either they've incorporated too many trends, and I don't necessarily think it's trends that are reflective of them. It's just a fact of the amount of noise and the amount of imagery and the amount of stuff out there and the pressure that we feel to, we don't want anyone to talk negative about our wedding and we want to fit our wedding in and, we want to get wedding published or whatever it is that is causing that pressure. I think when they lose their way with their wedding and it becomes completely lack of personality. But ultimately, every wedding has a personality, right? It's got their vows, it's got their little special things. So even if you can't see them
Mhm.
in the photos, the stories are still there. They just can't sometimes get a bit lost.
Yeah, yeah, no, 100%. I can definitely see how that would happen. Um, so in contrast, I'm actually going to ask you a bit of a kind of personal, but what about your wedding? What was your vision for your wedding? And like, is there anything like the highlights or anything you do different now? Or
I think, like I keep saying, I think I would be braver. I don't think I thought about and like I was a wedding blogger when I got married, so I knew the ability of things to be different. I'm not
Mhm.
obviously a very offbeat kind of person. You can see that through my site. I'm kind of I still stay in the lines and all that kind of stuff. But I wish I'd been braver with some different decisions. We did some fun stuff, like we had food trucks, before food trucks were a thing, and we had a lot of
Very
color
cool.
because I love color. I did a lot of greenery. I did a lot of things I really, really love, and it was of its time. And I think that's what the special thing is about weddings is we're so worried about things being trendy or not, but it's nice to look back at a wedding and go, "Oh, that was so 2006. Like that was the time. That was what we were doing or
Yeah,
whatever we were doing at that point."
that
So I
nostalgic feeling.
exactly.
Yeah.
I wish I'd been braver about pushing the boundary, I guess, I think, with certain things, but I didn't realize what was possible because it was of that moment. And, I didn't really think beyond the traditions in some ways. And I wish I'd done that. But I think we were so much luckier now to be able to see how couples are doing it and to go, oh, actually, would that work for me? Maybe I could do it differently.
Mm-hmm. No, no, 100%. And I guess, was there any added pressure since you were in the industry and when you were having your wedding
Look,
or
none of my
anything like
vendors
that?
knew. I
Okay.
only told one or two, and I don't think they still know, to be honest. I only told one or two of my vendors. Um, and so I purposely did it that way because I purposely didn't want the pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because I knew that I would feel that pressure and I knew that I would make decisions based off pressure, and I didn't want to do that. I wanted to make decisions based off who I and my partner were and at that point in time. So um, that was how I managed to quarantine it, by not telling
Yeah.
anyone.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's amazing. Incognito. I like
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Incognito. Very cool. And speaking about vendors, so now sort of focusing on advice to the couples out there as well.
yeah.
Is there any red flags you look out for when couples are sifting through vendors? And on the other side of that, any green flags as well?
We have a stance at Polka Dot Wedding where it's like we help you find vendors that fit you, not us, because I think it's really easy for us as a directory to go, we'll look at your website and all your work and we'll recommend you. And ultimately, I know
Mm-hmm.
from my 20 years of experience that even the vendors with the most polished portfolios and the polished websites can still not be the right fit for you. I think it's a green flag is vendors that ask you questions before you pitch, vendors that you get along with, that you feel like, oh, I could
Mm-hmm.
really um, have a glass of wine with you or a cup of tea, but
Yeah.
also vendors that ultimately you can trust. There's so much that can go wrong on a wedding day, and you want to be able to trust with your vendor. I think with the florist particularly or other vendors like that, to be able to say to them, look, this is my vision. I just want color or whatever it is. And you trust that they will go off and do whatever they can do with that stuff and your brief. To be able to have that level of trust with the vendor, I think is so, so important. And I feel like that's when you get that green flag that they're responding to you, they understand your vision, you trust them with your wedding without micromanaging and feeling unsure and uncertain and getting that bad vibe.
Mm-hmm.
So on the flip side, it's the same with red flags, when they make you feel like it's a transaction rather than you're a person, when you get a bad gut feeling, when they're not replying quickly. And I don't mean quickly as in they're not replying in 2 hours. Like, let's set
Yeah.
decent boundaries here. I'm talking
Mm-hmm.
about if they're not replying in like 2 weeks or a month or
Yeah.
whatever it is, within
Yeah.
reasonable timing here. And I think vendors who have a lack of curiosity about who you are as a couple and how to kind of do their best job for your wedding based on who you are. If you can't get that with a vendor, they're not the right vendor for you.
Mm-hmm.
And every
No, no.
couple will have different vendors that fit them.
Mhm. No, I completely agree. And any insight as to weddings that are being hosted overseas? How does that sort of change the
Oh, I think it's
Yeah.
even harder, right? I think it's the same thing, though. We're doing so many vendor calls now, right, via Zoom. We don't even need to meet up with vendors in person. So I think you
Mhm.
can do that same thing over Zoom. You don't necessarily need to meet them in person.
Yeah.
I'm also always a huge advocate for wedding planners. I think the mental load of a wedding on the day, I've done a podcast about this actually, will
Okay.
fall on someone. If it's not you and you're not having a wedding planner, it will be your bridesmaid, it will be someone else. I've played that role for other people. There's someone that's always like, "Oh, are we hitting the timeline? Are we doing this? Oh, crud, that vendor hasn't shown up. What do we do?"
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm a huge fan of wedding planners for that reason, of them being able to take that mental load off you. And I think particularly for international weddings when you can't be on the ground and you may not
Oh, for
understand all
sure.
the local customs and the local, like, "Oh, well, in Italy, they take, 4 years longer to reply," or whatever it is. There's
Oh,
that,
maybe even
like
5 years
island
longer.
time, yeah, island time,
Yeah.
Italian time, all that stuff. They don't work between 1 and 2, whatever it is. Like, to have
Mhm.
someone local on the ground can be really helpful.
Yeah. No, no, 100%. I was, at a wedding last year in the Amalfi Coast, and they had a wedding planner. But yeah, it was very much the same thing. It's like they don't work certain hours in the Arvo, and like
Yeah.
it's just really slow to respond. And it's always like, oh, don't
And it's
worry,
normal,
it'll
right?
work
It's
out.
normal over there, but for us would be like freaking out. So it's better to
Yeah,
have someone that can guide you through that and hold your hand.
exactly right. And it's a case I find of, I always say buy it nice or buy it twice, right? So with a wedding,
Mhm.
it happens once. So I think if couples put their money towards the right aspects of their wedding, it can really build, to a successful night. So
Yep, yep,
yeah,
agree.
yeah. No, amazing, amazing. I'm going to move on to our quick fire round now. I've got a couple of questions here, and the aim of these is to answer the question just in the least amount of words possible. It's just a little bit of quick advice for couples and weddings in general as well. So, first question is, are you ready, firstly,
No,
Dorothy?
no. Probably not. I'm not quick fire enough. I'm wordy, we know this.
Uh, okay, you'll be right though. I believe in you. You'll be right. So here, if you were planning a wedding for 2026 tomorrow or 2027, because it takes that long, what is the one traditional wedding expense you would immediately cut from the budget?
Look, this is a really bad question for someone that has a vendor directory. Like, I'm not gonna throw anyone under the bus.
Yeah.
Anything
That's fair.
anything that you're doing purely because it's expected and not because it matters to you.
Amazing. No, that's a amazing answer. What is the most overplayed song or trend that you are officially ready to see retired from the wedding
Look,
industry?
the Twilight version of 1,000 Years or Marry Me by Bruno Mars. But again,
Yeah.
what do you care what a wedding blogger thinks? If you're listening, do what you want. Doesn't matter what I
Yeah.
think. But
You do
yeah,
you.
yeah,
Yeah.
you do you. But I've written those a number of times. We're done with them now, aren't we? What do you think the song of 2026 is for you for walking down the aisle?
Oh, that's a hard one. That's a really hard one. I wouldn't even say there is one. We just get so much diverse like gigs and inquiries and all that sort of
Yeah,
stuff that
yeah,
sometimes it's a house music song, for example. Like the one that I did in the Amalfi was Don't You Worry Child by Swedish House Mafia.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
That's
Because it
awesome.
would be
Yeah,
nostalgic
yeah,
for the couple. And again, that was non-traditional in the sense that it wasn't inside a church, it was outside. Um,
yeah,
yeah. So I think, yeah, very much like you. If it's authentic to them, it just can be so different every time, and
yeah.
that's the really really good part. Yeah, as far as a cheesy one and an overplayed one, I don't think it's been pretty good. I must say, it's been pretty
Yeah, I
good.
think I think the song choices are a bit more diverse in 2026 than we've been seeing since COVID.
Yeah. No, 100%. So I really like to see that, and as a DJ myself, it's really refreshing. So that's really cool. And what is the single biggest vibe killer you see at receptions that couples can easily avoid?
I think it's a combo of things. Speeches that go on for too long without any real heart. A timeline that is just so full that you can't get a minute alone. Vendors going through the motions rather than really genuinely caring and sort of it being part of the couple's day and in their sort of all their work, and couples who fill their day with so much stuff that just isn't theirs, and it just ends up being a day that isn't really about them at all. It just becomes about every tradition and thing that trend.
No, very much so. Thanks so much for, I guess, opening the perspective on, being true to yourself. And I don't think I hear that enough as sort of wedding advice. So yeah, that's really refreshing to hear, Dorothy.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me as a guest. I really feel honored to be asked.
No, no, of course, and best of luck with your podcast as well. That's super
Thank you.
exciting, super
Thank you.
exciting. So, Dorothy, thank you so much for joining the Morlyfe frequency. Do you want to tell our audience where they can find you, website, any hashtags and stuff like that?
You can find Polka Dot Wedding everywhere. We are polkadotwedding.com, and you can find us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Pinterest, wherever the social media will lead you. We are Polka Dot Wedding on all of them.
Amazing. Thank you again so much for your time, and best of luck with everything.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.